Thanks, everyone. I don't have any slides. I'd just quite like to talk to you about my career so far and lessons sort of I've learned along the way, and then if I can sort of be as bold as to give you some advice at the end as well. So thank you very much for the introduction. So I, as you've heard, I'm an academic here at the university. I started off so I did astrophysics as an undergrad, and then I felt like I'd want to do something really practical, and nobody had sort of said to me, hey, that's engineering, don't you know? And I didn't know. So I carried on doing astrophysics, but I kept doing everything that was really practical with it. And does anyone know Jodrell Bank Observatory? It's like a for those of you who don't know, it's a radio astronomy dish, 76 metres in diameter on the Cheshire Plain, so a few miles outside of Manchester. And I worked there as a junior engineer once I'd finished, because I loved doing all this practical work, and my passion was the astrophysics side of things. And so I worked there, and then somebody at the university said, oh, hey, don't you know what you're doing could be sort of written up as a PhD? I'm like, okay, then, so I'll write my research up as a PhD. I was working on an amazing project, a space-based satellite project, and so I wrote that up. And literally the day I handed in my PhD, I had an interview for a lectureship. And so most people sort of go out and celebrate after they've handed in their PhD. I went for an interview and for a lectureship in the School of Electrical and Electronic Engineering, where I am now, at the university, and I got the job. I was amazed that I got the job, and so I started my sort of lectureship, my sort of academic work at the university, and so I teach. I still teach. I used to teach a big first year course called Electronic Circuit Design. I don't teach that anymore because I have some other roles in the university, but I still carry on with my research, and I'm now the Vice Dean, so I have sort of a management and leadership role within the faculty and within the university. So I'm the Vice Dean for Teaching and Learning for our faculty, Science and Engineering. And I'm very lucky that I get to do some sort of public engagement work as well. And so I started off as a lecturer in 2006, and then 2014 was quite a major year for me, both sort of personally and professionally. And my husband always calls it the 3 Ps. I was promoted to Prof, which was quite a major achievement for me, sort of personally and from a career point of view. And I really wanted to be promoted on my teaching ability and my research ability as well. So because I'd never taught before, before becoming a lecturer, and I love that sort of feeling that you get from teaching. It's a very different feeling to what you get in research. They're both brilliant, but they're very different. And so I was very keen that I wanted to try and be promoted both on my teaching and my research. And so I was promoted to Prof, and it was, like I say, both my teaching and my research. And my research is, I'm sure you know, there are 14 World Engineering Grand Challenges. I work on one of them. I engineer the tools for scientific discovery, and so I work quite a lot with NASA, with ESA for their space-based things, and then with people like Rolls-Royce in terms of aerospace as well. And I remember, I think I was probably still a lecturer, maybe a senior lecturer, and I was working with a company, quite a large company in the UK, and I remember going with a colleague, and I was the project manager. I felt quite junior, I felt quite young, but I was the project manager. I was the project lead, the project engineer for it, and my colleague, who was male, came with me. And this company, which was very, if you've heard of the phrase pale, male and stale, they were very sort of white, middle class men of a certain age, who probably worked in this company, very successful company, for a very long time. And they couldn't look at me in this meeting, so they kept looking at my male colleague all the time. And so I would say, oh, so we're on target for our project, blah, 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 and then they'd turn to my male colleague and say, okay, so what about this? And try and talk about the technical details with my male colleague. And thankfully, he's such a great colleague, but he would always turn to me and say, oh, Danielle, what do you think? And so I'd say, well, thank you, and I'd repeat. And then they'd turn back to him and say, oh, so, and carry on. And so I used to come out of these meetings really frustrated, and I used to say to my colleague, Peter, this is really, really frustrating me, and I don't know what to do about it. And we used to go for a drink and talk about it. And I was like, okay, right, I need to do this because it's really, really annoying me, so I need to think of a solution for this. And actually what I realised was it was their problem, and I had to help them, these sort of more senior male people who hadn't been used to seeing a female engineer, and certainly not a young female engineer, in a senior role. So I had to help them get over that. And once I got that in my head, I felt so much better, because it wasn't like I was clashing every time I went in. The next time I was like, right, okay, we need to try and sort this out, because I'm not quite sure what's going on. And so and they were sort of a bit embarrassed with it, but actually they were like, we really didn't realise we were doing it. And so it was really good just to get it out in the open and talk to them. And I have a great relationship with this company now, and the same people. But I thought it was really good. It could have gone one or two ways. I could have just carried on being really, really annoyed with it and ended up getting quite bitter, and in a way probably losing some of my femininity, trying to become a bit more male and a bit more macho, and and I'm really pleased I didn't do that. I'm really pleased I sort of went, look, I really need to talk to you about this, because I'm not quite sure what's going on yet, and I think it's just because maybe you're not used to having females in this role. And they were like, God, you're right. I feel a bit embarrassed that you're saying it, but yeah, you're right. And so that, I think that really helped me in my sort of management roles, coming through both from a research point of view and a leadership view from the university as well. So then we get to 2014, and we get to these 3 Ps, as my husband calls them. So I was made prof, which I was super happy about. This is sort of a big deal for me, both in my research and my teaching. And then, has anyone heard of the Christmas lectures? The Royal Institution Christmas lectures? For those of you who don't know, they're sort of quintessentially Christmas in the UK, and every year from 1824 or something. I think they stopped for a couple of world wars or something, but generally every year since about in the 1800s, there have been these lectures at Christmas time, a series of lectures that have tried to bring science to life, largely for the public, and that could be any children up to 100 years old, sort of thing. And I had an email from the Royal Institution saying, oh, we're just Royal Institution, just wondering if you'd like to put yourself forward to deliver the Royal Institution Christmas lectures. And one of those emails that you get and you're like, yeah, would I really love £1 million in my bank account? Of course I would. Yeah, delete. And so I deleted it, and thankfully a couple of weeks later they contacted me again and said, oh, we're just wondering, did you get that email? And I was like, oh God, yeah, I did. I didn't realise you were being serious. And they were like, yes. And it makes you think of like imposter syndrome. I felt like I was some sort of imposter. Like, God, they can't really be asking me to give the Christmas lectures, because I watched these from being a child all the way up. Wow, you want me to do them? And talk about things that I'm passionate about? Wow, that's amazing. And I think quite a lot of people do suffer from imposter syndrome, and that can sort of manifest itself in different ways. You can think of something, you might do something, and when you're reflecting on how it went, you'll pick out the negatives about it all the time. Or even if people are saying, that was great, well done, you're like, no, I'm not quite sure about that, and you're really critical of yourself. Or you just don't believe that someone wants you to deliver something that you find would be an amazing opportunity. So I really felt like I had this imposter syndrome, and I've definitely still got it now, for sure. I try and sort of temper it now and sort of think to myself, right, you've got this imposter syndrome, stop thinking like that. It's good to reflect and be critical on yourself, but stop thinking you're an imposter. And so I did these Christmas lectures, and on the run up to it, I So it was about, so you deliver them into Christmas, and it was in the summertime, all like the big publicity was going out from the BBC, and Danielle George is going to be the Christmas lecturer. And then I found out I was pregnant, and I was like, yay, I'm pregnant, because I was 38, and so I was like, oh God, we've left it quite late. So we were like super happy, my husband and I were super happy that I was pregnant. And then I started to sort of count down the months, and I was like, oh no, I'm actually going to be like massively heavily pregnant, if not having a baby, when I'm supposed to be doing Christmas lectures. Like, oh great. All these two wonderful things have happened to me in my life right at the same time. And that was really, really annoying. And I was like, I can't believe, I'm going to have to go back to the Royal Institution and the BBC and say, I just can't do this. And thankfully, my husband was like, really? Why? And I was like, I don't know, actually. Why can't I? And he was like, yeah, why can't you? And thankfully, he did say that. And so I delivered the Christmas lectures. And, anyone who has been on television, or you have your photograph taken or whatever, you sort of want to try and look your best. I was 8.5 months pregnant when I gave these Christmas lectures, so I'm definitely not looking my best. But I think it was really, really good. It was really good for me, to do that. But I had so many lovely letters, like emails, but actually written letters as well from people afterwards saying it was really good, and it was very empowering to see a female giving the lectures, talking about engineering, because normally quite a lot of it is sort of theoretical science or much more the sort of science side. But also to be 8.5 months pregnant and doing it and showing actually you can do that as well. So that was quite a major thing for me, the Christmas lectures, and certainly doing it in 8.5 months pregnant. And then I had some time off for my maternity leave. I had about 9 months, which was really, really nice. And a university is such an environment that you can do that. But the downside is, in your research, I had a grant that needed to be resubmitted for my research for the next 3 years. And so I had to make the decision, okay, I'm on maternity leave. I either say I'm on maternity leave and so I can't be part of this grant, but then in 6 months' time when I go back, I've then got 2.5 years where I'm not going to be part of that grant anymore. Or I just say, do you know what, I'm just going to have to write this grant on maternity leave, and I did that, and I'm pleased I did do that, but it made me be very strict about it as well, to say that's all I'm doing. I'm writing this grant because I want to. I'm not being forced to do it, but I want to for my career. And so that's the only thing that I did in those 9 months. And I spent a wonderful 9 months with Elizabeth, my daughter. And she, I was telling her this morning actually, so she's nearly 4 now. I was telling her this morning what I was doing, coming to talk about what Mummy does in engineering, and I'm going to talk about it. She's like, okay, why? She's at that age, why? And I said, well, because look, not many mummies and women do engineering, so we need to talk about it. And she's like, oh, okay, why? And I was like, well, do you know what, Elizabeth? I don't actually know, because it's such a great job, and I love it, and I honestly don't know why we have this problem. And she's like, no, so is Daddy going to talk about men doing it? And I was like, well, no, because they don't have a problem. Why? I don't actually know. And so it's really interesting talking to her about it. And I think it's those sort of very naive questions that make you think, why have we got this problem? Like, really, why have we got this problem? I love my job. I love the fact that I can look forward into the future and see a rising demand for my skill, for your skill. And why do we have to work so hard to get people involved? And wouldn't it be great to get to a point where we do have primary school children, secondary school children sort of queuing up to join the STEM professions, not because of being cajoled into it by their parents or whatever, but because fundamentally they know that they're very passionate and how creative a role like this can be in STEM. And so that's why I spend some of my time now doing the sort of public engagement and the outreach work as well, and working with some of our professional bodies, but also going into primary schools and talking to the teachers, like I was saying before, and some of the children as well. And it's really nice talking to the children about it, because you do get those naive questions, and I find them really difficult to answer, which is good, good in a sort of challenging way. And I remember saying to one of my friend's daughter, she was about 8 or 9 at the time, and I was saying, I'm going to go into a school, I'm probably going to come into your school, I'm going to talk to everybody, all of you in the class, and talk about what I do, because I think it's really important that we do that. We talk about how great science and engineering is. And she's like, oh yeah, me too. And I was like, oh dear, why? Why do you think it's important? And she was like, And I use this quote loads, so I apologise if you've heard me talk before, but she said, well, I'm you in the future, so if you help me now, in the future, I can be better than you. And it was such a great quote, and you're like, yes, that's such a great motivator for my work, whether it's when I'm teaching, when I'm doing my research, or doing the public engagement at work. If you can make the next generation better than you are in engineering, then that's brilliant, and what a great future we're going to have. So I spend quite a lot of my time doing that, and I think picking up from a point that Aileen was saying before about diversity and the number of engineers, female engineers, certainly in academia, and it sounds like it's the same in industry as well. There's not many of us. We can certainly have more, and it's one of those where you sort of go, well, diversity is a great thing. Well, yeah, of course it is. Isn't that obvious? Of course it's a great thing. And I hadn't really appreciated why it was such a great thing until last week, when I was on an appointments panel for quite a senior position in the faculty, science and engineering, and the panel was made up of 6 people, and there were 3 male and 3 female, and this was quite rare, but it just so happened that there were some other roles of my level were also female as well. So the makeup of the panel was 50-50 gender, and we interviewed a few people, men and women, and one of the females just rocked it. Someone just comes in and she was just brilliant, and afterwards, after we'd interviewed everybody in the panel was like, she was just amazing. Why was it that she was amazing? And we were like, well, she's just really good, and she didn't seem that nervous. She was very confident. And so the dean of the faculty called her that evening, gave her the good news, and she was like, oh, I can't believe it, And she definitely has imposter syndrome, so she didn't even accept the job straight away. She had to think about it for 24 hours. But when she did eventually accept it, she said, I think what really helped me was the panel was so friendly and so inviting, and I felt really comfortable with it. And so the dean sort of probed him and like, oh, what do you mean? Because are we all smiley and happy? And she's like, I think it was because it was a 50-50 gender thing. And the dean quite rightly said, I want to assure you that had that been a panel of 6 males, you still would have got that job, because you are very, very good. And her retort, which has really made me think about diversity, was, no, I wouldn't, because I wouldn't have performed the way I did had that panel been all male. And I hadn't really thought of it in the other way before. I'd always thought of it, the panel, yes, of course you should have 50-50 because diversity is a good thing. But I hadn't really thought of it from the other side of, that lady wouldn't have performed the way she did and really just rocked it had that panel been full of males as well. So it is really important, and I think we all know it's important, and that for me is why it's important as well. And she was saying she feels really empowered now because she has a senior role, and hopefully she's going to sort of help other engineers like that. So I think if I could sort of just finish with maybe a couple of points in STEM events like this, like other STEM events that I'm sure you do. I think it's brilliant that you get people to come, females to come, and to talk about being a woman in engineering as well. But don't lose the fact that they are great engineers in their own right, to get them to talk about the fabulous, creative, passionate engineering that they do as well, because that's really, really important. And empowered women empower women. And I think that's really, really important. So it doesn't matter what stage you are of your studies, of your career, just feel empowered. Forget this imposter syndrome that you might have. And I'm still working on that, but forget it as much as you can. You're not an imposter. If you are passionate and creative and determined in your job, you will succeed. Doesn't matter what sex you are, gender you are, and feel empowered, because that will empower other people as well. Okay, thank you very much.